Hi, everyone. Welcome to Smart City Institute Japan's webinar series called Global Perspectives on Smart Cities. I'm Nagumo, Executive Managing Director of Smart City Institute Japan, your host of this session. So this is the second day, day 2 of the European week. So we are running 3 consecutive days of a webinar, especially focused on various aspects of the Estonian digital government. And Estonia is already well known for the digital government. Now we are trying to catch up with something new happening in Estonia. And today's topic is Estonia's data exchange infrastructure, X-Road and digital ID. And we have 2 distinct speakers. So let's invite speaker to the screen. Mr. Heiko Vainsalu, Program Director of Technology at E-Governance Academy. Hi, Heiko. How are you?
Hello, fine, thank you. Nice to be here.
The second speaker, Mr. Kazunari Kudo from EGA. Smart City Institute Japan.
No, I am fine with EGA. Thank you, Zach. Yes.
All right. All right, so we have 2 speakers. And our game plan is to have Kudo-san go first for his presentation. And then we'll have Heiko's presentation next. Then we'll have an open discussion. As always, we'd like to invite audiences to put questions and comments on chat box, and we'll pick them up at open discussion time. And one ask to the audiences is that when you write messages to us, please choose all from the pull-down menu of the chat box. That way we can share all the writings from everyone to anyone. All right. So without further ado, let's move on to the presentation by Kudo-san.
Okay, just a minute. So thank you very much, everyone. And my name is Kudo. And actually, I'm sorry about my, back is Smart City Institute Japan. But today I'm speaking from Mitsubishi UFJ Research and Consulting. And today I'm very, very happy to make a presentation on X-Road as well as X Digital ID together with Heiko, my friend in EGA. So let me put my screen. And today's game plan is, again, Tak already mentioned, but Kudo speak first, and then Heiko follows. And my presentation will be like 10 minutes, and then Heiko's presentation, 20 minutes will follow. And then we will have a discussion. So this first slide shows the UN e-government survey in 2020. And I'm just highlighting Estonia and Japan here. So this EGDI value shows the overall index. And here, unfortunately, in Japan, we are ranked 14th, which is 4 notches down from 2018. This e-government survey will run every 2 years. And here you can see that Estonia ranked 3rd. And among Asian countries, Japan is ranked 3rd, first, Korea, 2nd, Singapore, 3rd, Japan. And you may wonder where is China? And China is ranked 45th. But from 2 years ago, they were 65th, 65. So they upgraded 20 notches. If you look at the Japan, this EGDI, the e-government index, is comprised of 3 individual index. And this OSI stands for Online Service Index, and HCI, the Human Capital Index, and TII, this is a Telecommunications Infrastructure Index. And counting those 3 factors, you will come up with the EGDI. The total overall index, and Japan is ranked 6th for TII, so this is okay, strong. But unfortunately, this OSI, the Online Service Index, and the HCI, the Human Capital Index, is 11th and 14th respectively. So that those areas Japan needs improvement. And again, Estonia is third and ranked very strongly among peers like Denmark, Korea. You can see fourth, Finland, Australia, Sweden, United Kingdom, as well as New Zealand, United States, Netherlands, Singapore, Iceland, Norway, those familiar faces. This slide too shows the overall view of the national data strategy in Japan. So this is in Japan. And I highlighted in yellow, red as in frame. So this data strategy architecture, this service platform tools here that framed in red includes the digital data exchange infrastructure as well as the digital ID here. So this is a kind of a very important strategy for Japan to promote those two areas or two sectors. And here is the roadmap of the national data strategy in Japan. And you can see that here we are moving in Japan from stage 01 to stage 2 at this moment. And for the data exchange platform, which I highlighted in yellow, you can see that this data exchange platform will be implemented by 2025. We are now sitting in 2021, so it's still 4 years to come. And here, since this is the national data strategy, so this talks about the data-driven society in Japan to come after 2030. This is, from Japan's point of view, matters to be urgently tackled. And I put two things here from the documents from the Japanese government. First, building a digital platform through the national and local government in Japan. And this is to promote the standardization of the information systems that are separated among ministries, agencies, and regions. This is the first matter. And the second matter is the further utilization of the My Number card, which is equivalent to EID in Estonia, and My Number, which is a passport for the digital society in Japan. And I will come back to this My Number card later on my presentation. Here is today's topic, two key enablers of digital government in Estonia, the X-Road and digital ID. And I know that Heiko will make a presentation later, and I believe that he is using two legs. And what is X-Road? I should not go into too much detail, but actually this is the backbone of digital government in Estonia. So X-Road provides services to citizens, government, and private sector. And to ensure the transfer, the transactions, all outgoing data is digitally signed and encrypted, and all incoming data is authenticated and logged. So it's pretty much secured. And X-Road connects different information systems that may include a variety of services. And X-Road was designed to grow, so the growth in mind, so you can expand the areas that of the e-services, so that we can add more services to X-Road. I put all the jargons here so that you can take a look at them later when I upload my material. And this is the core concepts of X-Road. And there are three integral components that provides the technological capability of X-Road data exchange. And first is the security server here. Second is a central servers or services here. And monitoring systems here. And for the security server, this acts as a gateway between the service provider's information system and the X-Road infrastructure. And for the central services, this maintains the information that have been approved certificate authorities, approved trust services, and X-Road members and security servers. And for the monitoring systems, it receives information about transactions from security servers and make it available to the central system administrators. The benefit of X-Road, this may be pretty much known, so I will go quickly. And 99% of state services in Estonia government are online, and 2,700 services performed via X-Road. And a lot of transactions, 560 million plus transactions requests per year. And many institutions and organizations are using X-Road directly, indirectly as well. And this is performed via internet work in the middle here. EID, you can see it here. And positioning of X-Road in digital ecosystem. I put this slide and made this slide from the Smart City Reference Architecture, page 145. So you can make reference to them. But here in the digital ecosystem, this tries to explain conveniently by 4 layers, and we can see where X-Road stands. So X-Road is positioned in the layer 3 here, data sharing infrastructure among the 4-tier relationship. It's 4. And you can see that the fireware is put on layer 4 here, service platforms, and GAIA-X corresponds to the cloud edge infrastructure here. But this diagram may not be perfect, but it's quite easy to understand. So we use this. Sometimes this may not be clearly divided into 4 categories. Here, we look back the X-Road history. 20 years of implementation since 2001, version 1. And now we are currently under version 6 since 2014, and constantly updating since then. And also, you can see that in 2013, Estonia and Finland signed MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding to cooperate to develop X-Road between 2 countries. So since then, they cooperate strongly. And again, you can see that the X-Road has proven track record as well. For this X-Road, Estonia and Finland, Finnish X-Road was implemented back in 2015. And also, together with Estonia and Finland, they established jointly Nordic Institute for Interoperability Solutions, established by both countries back in 2017. And recently, Iceland also joined this institution. And this Nordic Institute for Interoperability Solutions is promoting the international cooperation as well, and exporting X-Road to the overseas countries. I think Heiko will touch on this. And what is happening in Japan and Europe? I showed it in the ecosystem diagram a couple of slides ago, but in Europe, the GAIA-X, as well as the International Data Space, IDS, has been rapidly developed in Europe. In Japan, Data-EX, the data distribution infrastructure that connects the various sectors of data, such as data prevention, disaster prevention, and health and education, mobility, etc. And this is based on the comprehensive data strategy in Japan. And also, in Japan, in order to promote the development of rules of data handling on each platform, Cabinet Office is trying to formulate the guidelines and common rules for the platforms. So this is what is happening in Japan as well. I go to digital ID, and this is well known to the audience in Japan. But this COVID-19, since last year, this made us aware, of the, the necessity of the My Number Card. So benefits that we receive from the government and also the vaccination passport, vaccination certificate have given rise to a debate on My Number Card. Unfortunately, in Japan, the penetration rate or the possession rate of the My Number Card are still low. And there are a lot of factors maybe, but one of the factor is the public confidence with regards to My Number Card is still an issue. I will touch upon a little bit about the situation between both countries, Japan and Estonia, in a minute. And they are necessary elements for the promotion of digital government. And not only that we are discussing here today, the data exchange platform as well as EID, digital identity, there are other digital elements as well as the analog elements that are needed to promote the digital government. And this has been well, summarized or explained by EGA. And since they have the training course, so if you have interest in knowing more, I think please contact us to have further training on this topics. And this is going to be my last slide. And this is the comparison table between Japan and Estonia with regards to the digital ID. And you can see that in Estonia, some of you may know well, but Estonia's EID is available to use in all public administrative services in person. In person meaning Taimen. And when it comes to online, there are three exceptions: marriage, divorce, and also the real estate buying and selling. Those services, public administrative services, has to be done in person. Maybe we can understand why. And also, this Estonia EID is compliant with EIDAS, the directives or rules in common rules in EU. And also the digital ID carrier, in Japan, the My Number Card is IC plastic card, whereas in Estonia, along with IC plastic card, there are mobile ID and smart ID as well. And the digital certificates like user certificate and certificate of electronic signatures are quite the same in Estonia as well. I will stop my presentation and hand it over to Heiko. So Heiko, please continue.
Thank you, Kudo. I will share my own slide set initially and try to maybe give an alternative viewpoint of how my own experience and perspective show the Estonian ecosystem and these two pillars or legs that our e-society is working on. Briefly, we have been mentioning here today several times EGA, or which is short e-governance academy. Some people have occasionally asked that is the E for Estonia, but I think no, it's E for electronic. E-governance academy is something established already in 2002, so we are about to become 20 years old as an organization. We are independent and aiming for helping different countries on establishing e-governance solutions and the management of and roadmaps for how the e-governance could be deployed. The number of employees has gone up since the last few years, and therefore I'm very happy to be now part of this team since about 1.5 years now. The fields of expertise that e-Governance Academy is doing is the smart governance change management, There is the e-democracy and e-participation, and I very often I'm the annoyance to my colleagues saying that why we only do e-democracy, maybe we could do e-autocracy also, but somehow it hasn't been picked up. I don't know why. And from the more practical aspects, it's the technology field where I am the team lead and the national cybersecurity team. Couple of words about myself also, as I just found out that I'm the youngest in the technology team in EGA, then I need to build some reputation to say that what I'm saying is actually valid and noteworthy. My educational background is related to informatics studies in Tallinn Technical University. And since that time, I have been mostly working for my professional career in Estonian public sector. I was responsible for the inter-organizational data exchange problems in the national health insurance provider for 8 years. Saw all the sweat and tears of what it takes for a governmental authority to cooperate and do data exchange with other organizations. So it was a lot to learn, a lot to establish, and as I was constantly sending different kind of requests, issues, questions, and concerns to the Information System Authority in Estonia, who is responsible for these national platforms of data exchange, EID, and other things, then about 9 years ago, they invited me to come and try to solve these questions and concerns that I had raised myself. So for 5 years, I was responsible for the X-Road as an ecosystem in Estonia and was running a small team there that was taking care of the what I'm now calling a governing authority. But I'll come to that, what is governing authority and how does it all fit together. And now since 2018, I have been working in the private sector and seeing that, as to my personal opinion, Estonia has not succeeded very well in digital governance. Then I try to be helpful for other countries to saying that please don't do as bad as Estonia did, you can do a lot better. So at least learn from our mistakes in order to make faster and more efficient progress on e-governance. So instead of diving directly in to the what are the two pillars or two legs that the Estonia is standing on, I think I need to reason it a little bit why Estonia is what it is, because I know very few people in Estonia who are looking for this, what Kudo also showed, the United Nations Index of Digital Governance. This is most interesting for government CIO and maybe some marketing people. For the people in Estonia, it's not a concern. The concern is that we have had our own country now for a little bit more than 20 years since the regaining of independence. And we found out that it's nice and proud to be Estonian, and we would like to have our own country, not an occupied one. But the problem is that I specifically chose this picture here because this is of the National Song Festival, where 2 years ago, when the last event was happening, there was 140,000 persons on the Song Festival ground, which means that roughly 10% of the whole population is on one picture. This means that as a grand total, we don't have very much people, we don't have very much land, we don't have chocolate or oil or petrol or gold or anything coming out of our ground. So therefore, we consider ourselves somewhat poor, which means that having our own country is a struggle. It's expensive to have our own country because we have to sustain different functions that are needed to run a country. We need to run the Defense Ministry, we need to run the Ministry of Education, services related to social welfare, services related to science, running the economy, all these kinds of things that any government is doing. but there are just not enough resources, which leads us to this kind of inevitable thing that we need to streamline how the public services are being provided. There is no question of if we want to be modern or if we want to use some fancy technology. We just need to make the administration of the country as simple, as fast, as cost-effective as possible. And more than 20 years ago, a couple of good people, now most of them working in the EGA, figured out that ICT is the thing that we must invest into and use it in order to build our administrations into a better fit so that they would be working more efficiently. So the building of e-governance therefore started not from doing something cool or doing something extraordinary, but it came out of through necessity. And the two first projects that were launched, or I wouldn't say even projects, I would say platforms. The two first platforms that were introduced were the electronic identity and X-Road. The electronic identity is to see and face the problem that if people go to physical service provisioning stations or client offices, they are going there, spending time telling something which is being written. So this fact creates initially a lot of this kind of slowness in this process. People have to go, they have to speak, they have to do different things, while in a digital sphere, people are easier to bypass walking, bypass re-entering data, and bypass verifying that who they are. So therefore, in order to make the citizens able to access services in a digital channel, they needed some kind of electronic identity mechanism. Secondly, in order to make the back offices of different institutions and organizations better streamlined, better cooperative, you need them to be connected. So this is where X-Road was given birth. The notion and principle of once only principle, I hope it's well aware and people know about it in Japan also. Once only means that if a citizen or entrepreneur has given data about himself to the government once, then this data must be reused. So the X-Road is for the reuse. How to make it simple once the data is somewhere in the governmental systems, how to make it simple and secure to use it again and again and again. While EID is something where only once the citizen has to be locally present and give the information. So this once only principle has given us this kind of a consideration of what these platforms do. And I've tried to explain it in different ways, and maybe one of the ways is to say that the EID is a platform giving the citizens capability to act in a digital environment by saying only three things or enabling the citizen only to do three things. It doesn't need a lot of services. So the citizen using its EID has to be able in a web or some application to be able to show that this is me. This is me verifying that this is nobody else. It also has to be the possibility that if I send something over, some data, I must be able to make sure that only a specific person can read it. So using some kind of an encryption feature. And thirdly, in the digital sphere, as a citizen, I must be able to say that, yes, I agree to this kind of a thing. So the authentication, this is me here, is something that is one of the cornerstones. The consent giving is a second one. Encryption capabilities are less used, but they are more emphasized on the private sector. The X-Road, therefore, is a counterpart in the backends of information systems. And here it is not the citizens who are acting, but here it is I, me, and you. These are the information systems. So X-Road provides a mechanism for information systems to show that I am providing some services. I, as a population register, for example, or as a business register, These are the services that I provide, and I can give authorizations for others to use this data. Last but not least, X-Road to make interoperability reasonable. It gives evidential value, so that if somebody has given from one information system to another data set, the next one can use it for automated business decision making, so that they can have evidential value. This helps to automate and streamline the processes. And this is something that is widely known, accepted, and tolerated, to say that once something is given over X-Road from one authority to another, this is something that the authorities can use for making their own business decisions. And I would say, principle here, that these both legs, or the EID and X-Road, provide is, I've been very much asked that what are the new cool things that are happening on EID and X-Road and maybe other domains of Estonia. And I'm happy to say that there is not very much cool things, because the point of these platforms is to be conservative and to be stable. Why? Think of it as a metaphor of traffic management. You want to have traffic, you want to have cars to drive from point A to point B, and then forward it to point C and do different kind of routes. But if somebody would be changing the traffic rules every 2 years, it would be so much harder to learn how to drive, to adjust to all the changing regulation, to adjust all the changing environment of trafficking. So you would be more complicated to use your car if the changes surrounding it are constant. So therefore, X-Road and EID provide this very stable and solid platform, so that the cool things can now be done by the authorities who are providing actual public services and e-services for citizens. So a few words about EID. The EID is something on top of something. The important thing related to EID is that the baseline of it is physical identity management, which means that in Estonia, it's critical, and I think in every country, it's critical that government knows who are its clients, who are the citizens. This means that there is a person management system, like a population register, which has assigned a unique, persistent, and public identifier for each citizen. And this identifier is used for the token of EID, so that this token then can be distributed to citizens and they have the capability of using this. EID, therefore, steps in after these things. You have to have your population management, you have to have your identifiers on the citizens. Then you can talk about EID. And I think this is something we have been good on in building this kind of very strong baseline on the person management. We have even historically restored people who were born in the 19th century and have issued them these identifiers. And then it comes to the different interesting technical aspects related to how to give tools and tool sets and services for different authorities, so that it would be easy for the authorities to use EID capabilities. But let's not stop here, because as I said, EID and X-Road are two pillars, two legs that the e-society in Estonia is working on. And technically, they have no connection whatsoever. You can totally run one without the other. And as the distribution of X-Road in the world shows, there is no EID needed to actually build a sophisticated e-governance ecosystem in a country. But they very nicely supplement each other. While EID provides the citizens access to the e-services that organizations are providing, then X-Road helps organizations to be more streamlined and connect to each other. So one is connecting citizens to the authorities, the other is connecting authorities to authorities. But now I would spend a little bit of time on trying to give my own perception of how and what the X-Road is. So as I said, it is backend integration. The secure backend integration means that there are always two sides. You cannot do data sharing with only one participant. there wouldn't be very much point in me giving this presentation if only I would be in this call here. So it needs somebody else, a recipient. So therefore, there is always somebody who provides, somebody who consumes. And in order for these things to happen, a lot of things have to happen between these two organizations. They have to be able to agree on the architecture, transport, integrity protection, syntax, semantics, a lot of things, which means that the agreements is very hard to reach. And now consider this, it's not only one-to-one, but it is hundreds of organizations with their hundreds of information systems that need to make these agreements so that they would be able to be interoperable and share and use data from each other. And furthermore, if you somehow build a system that would enable these hundreds of information systems to be connected, this thing starts to change. Organizations redevelop systems, establish new ones, remove old ones, build new APIs, build new services. Things change, people change, services change. So the whole picture is constantly being changed around. So this calls out a specific solution that X-Road addresses, and Kudo very well defined it earlier, that it is built for sustainability and growth. So let's start back. We need two information systems that need to understand that we need to exchange something. So we have to understand that these two information systems are technical solutions, but they are both owned by an organization, and the organization is the one that can take responsibility. So therefore, in order to build a responsible ecosystem, you need to understand who is the owner and what is the technical component inside that. These organizations and their systems are registered, and they are given a ready-made box called security server that they have to deploy in their own landscape. So these boxes, the gray boxes below in this diagram, show that the responsibility area of each organization, in where they are responsible for their information system, and they also deploy something called a security server. So this is the basis. Once they have done that, in the security server, they connect locally their information system, they register their services that they are willing to provide, and also give the access control in their security server. Sorry. Once this is established, the X-Road X system takes care of the secure exchange of data between the security servers. So everybody speaks a very simple technical protocol with the security servers, while the security servers ensure that data is exchanged safely. This allows for the following things. The member has to pick up some responsibilities. They have to use at least one of these gateway applications of the security servers. They can use several. They must register themselves as an entity and define what are the systems they are connecting. And after they have done this, they can add additional systems. They can add or change services. They can add and change access controls to their services that they are providing for the rest of the ecosystem. So this gives this scalability that once you are in the ecosystem, you can locally, each authority can locally grow their services set and information sets, and you do strange things in their own backyard. And nobody cares what they are doing in the backyard because everything is exposed over X-Road as simple APIs. This leads me to the most important aspect of X-Road. X-Road is not, although it has also a technical component, it is not just a bunch of technology, but this is an organizational model. This is a governance model, which requires that there would be somebody who is an operator, an organization who orchestrates and manages this whole ecosystem. So there is no use of X-Road if there is no operator. These providers with their information systems and consumers with their security servers and information systems, they can do all the APIs and data exchange between themselves as much as they like. But having in mind these hundreds of systems, hundreds of members, there is somebody who is responsible and governing. This calls for the operator who is running, as Kudo also showed you briefly. There is something called the central server. There is somewhere some trust services. There is some kind of a monitoring ecosystem. This is all maintained and operated by the operator. And this gives a potential for growth. And this is what I just picked up today in the morning, showing some kind of top 500 information system in the Estonian XT. I'll come to that, why this is XT, that who are participating in this ecosystem and what kind of density and dependencies there are. It wouldn't be possible to do this with a central solution or centralized theme. This is that in each organization, there are people running their own local information systems and connecting it to X-Road in order to make bilateral data exchange request and execute the services. What can be seen very well here is that, or cannot be seen actually very well, but I just studied this diagram a little. It shows very strongly that there are these kind of domain-based clusters that in some specific business domains, there is one key service provider and a bunch of consumers who consume these services. And it turns out that these clusters very often are in the shape that there is in this, sorry, my mouse is really sensitive today. There is the nucleus is some public authority, and the most important users, consumers for their services are typically private enterprises. But there are cross-domain connections also, as can be seen here, that here are some kind of nucleuses on different business domains, and there are services that are used cross-domain. So the benefit of X-Road is building governance capability in this kind of ecosystem because things change. The picture, if I would have taken it 2 weeks ago, would have been something different. Maybe not too much different, but still different. And these changes is something that the ecosystem needs to adopt. Now, let's look at it a little bit bigger. In EU, X-Road hasn't been very popular. Why? Because Estonian way of how the solution was built and distributed was very protective in some matters. And now, as the Nordic Institute of Interoperability solution has been established, different countries are putting their effort in to build X-Road. There is now a better hope that the European defined e-delivery ecosystem and X-Road ecosystems would be in better connected. But the important aspect here is that while X-Road is aimed for this governance of data exchange, then e-delivery is about data transport as tool. So there is no governance structure in it. So it's from the X-Road perspective, it is very difficult to say whom we are connecting to, because there are just some sort of service providers and you don't understand the organizational capabilities and responsibilities tied to it. I've been asked several times, what is the kind of X-Road position in this bigger picture and comparison to different solutions? And Kudo very well defined this 4-tier level and give reference for GAIA-X and Fiber, was it, I think? I think the key here to understand, at least from my perspective, is that X-Road has been built as a very narrow thing. It totally disregards what kind of infrastructure anybody wants to use. As it is built for distributed architecture, you can use whatever physical architecture you want, and different countries have used different physical infrastructure to deploy X-Road. The only necessity is that the whole ecosystem would be running in one IP network. In Estonia, it was chosen that it can be public internet if we are able to use X-Road to secure it. Some other countries have used governmental private IP networks as the carrier that connects all the participants. Doesn't matter what the IP network is, important that it's limited to one IP network. From the upper layer, what is on top of X-Road, it's totally ignorant of what kind of service architecture or what kind of semantical enforcement organizations want to use, because X-Road just provides that whatever you give me, I'll send it as it is to the other side. The only thing is that I attach the clear understanding of who created this evidence and who received this evidence. And I have here also some keywords comparing X-Road to ESP and enterprise application integration solutions and also API gateways. the slides will be shared later, so I won't read them out. I hope you can study it yourself. That is definitely organizational aspect that X-Road addresses far better than other comparing solutions. Now in the world, nice to say that X-Road now officially is in Estonia and Finland. There is something happening in Faroe Islands. That is also in Iceland. They are building up the Nordic Institute of Interoperability Solution and putting in resources to build X-Road. There are different smaller projects in Europe, in Asia, where X-Road has been introduced and also working. And there are a lot of countries doing trials on it. Some reaching out to the conclusion that this is not for them. Some understanding that they are need to do some kind of adjustments. The most typical challenges that I see is the countries look at X-Road as a technical thing, saying that, oh yeah, there are instructions available. Yeah, we'll install and use it. It's fine. Well, in fact, it's not, because it's an organizational. You have to understand how does it relate to your ecosystem. And then the other thing typically appearing or happening is that they do some kind of a successful pilot, see that it's fine, and then it doesn't grow into an ecosystem as you showed in Estonia. Why? Because it's not a technical concern. It is an interoperability, is an organizational concern. You have to make organizations you want to be interoperable, and this needs organizational work. So, reaching to the end of my slide set, a few remarks. The most successful foreign non-Estonian X-Road instances are those who have been able to locally identify what speaks locally, what is the culture that connects organizations and people. So branding in this sense is an interesting and I think important aspect that has to be defined. In Ukraine, X-Road is deployed and called Trembita. Trembita is this huge horn that is used between the nomads if they are calling out to others. So this is something that is used for gathering. So they use this term for X-Road in Ukraine. In Kyrgyzstan, they call it Tunduk. Tunduk is in Kyrgyzstan yurt, the thing that is connecting and holding the whole yurt together. So the top element of the yurt. So, and the X-Road there is keeping the whole government together. And in Mexico, Quintana Roo state, they use Xacpe as the brand for X-Road because Xacpes were spelled slightly differently, were the ancient Mayan roads connecting different cities in the prehistoric times. So finding what talks to you makes it easier to adopt for organizations and people, and therefore build better ecosystem. And closing up, X-Road and EID are just two of the legs that were used as the start. This is a diagram that I usually use to say and expose that there are a lot of more these kind of platforms and domains of interoperability that have to be taken care of. So if these things are taken care of at least some level, the society shifts into a digital society. And I think we could talk on each of these for hours and hours. Today we just were talking on the data exchange and digital identity. And I know that in this seminar here, yesterday was a very good session on the information security. And you don't see any internet voting. That will be tomorrow's topic, because this is not the platform. This is a service provided by one of the government authorities. So this was it from my side. And I hope you have questions and concerns or things where I slipped over too fast, and I would be very happy to give further clarification. Back to you, Tak.
All right. Thank you very much, Heiko, for sharing deeper insight from the history and to the global extension. And what's fascinating to me was the kind of symbolism. You called it branding, but something like a symbolism that penetrates the culture or whatever the mind of the people in which the X-road is implemented. It's a very interesting story. And for the audiences, it's time to ask questions to Heiko and Kudo-san. So please feel free to ask questions right now. And in the meantime, I'd like to ask some questions to both gentlemen here. All right. And first question is to Heiko. So again, thank you very much for a very much insightful story. And people in Japan generally don't pay attention to the historical background. Like you started to implement digital technology because of kind of poor country, small country without natural resources. So survival was the reason. And it's people sometimes say necessity is a mother of invention, something like that. So I resonate that kind of historical background. Thank you very much. And probably other countries abroad maybe experiencing something similar to old Estonia might have some ask to Estonian EGA for support, right? So maybe developing countries trying to be digital country, asking for experiences and insights from Estonia. So what kind of questions are typical questions raised by the developing countries aiming to be digital?
Thank you, Doc. Very good question. I think I would bring here one example that was touching me personally and where I felt that, guys, you totally have misunderstood everything. One country in Africa trying to adopt this kind of e-governance solutions, including X-road type of thing, was after they had done through the implementation phase, they raised the question of how can we increase our state budget now? Like, how can we earn more money into the government sector, into the public sector? In which case I said, no, dear guys, you cannot do it. It's not the point of making government richer. It's about making society richer by reducing the footprint of the government. But this in Africa doesn't speak to people. And I think the reasoning is about cultural specifics and taboos. There are, if I've been able, pre-COVID times, been able to visit some countries in order to consult and help them to build X-road ecosystems, then it is very often that on the third or fourth day of my stay, I start to understand that something stinks. There is an elephant in the room that nobody is willing to talk about. Me as an outsider, I have the freedom to say that, guys, you have this elephant in the room. Like, let's deal with that, because this is something that is between you and your digital success. And this is the people, or initially, of course, go very shy and say, oh, no, well, it's not too common that we talk about this. But then we say, if you don't want to get rid of the elephant in the room, you won't change. Because if you want to say that we'll be as we are, then there is no point of building digital society. So finding these taboos is something that countries very often don't know to ask, but luckily we have been able to identify those.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Right. So I might have to ask the same question to ourselves in Japan, right? So maybe looking from Estonia, Japan on surface, superficially, I think looked very advanced from the technological standpoint. But the most recent COVID-19 revealed that we are not necessarily advanced in digital technology. Rather, we are stuck in the analog world. Maybe over adaptation to the convenient analog services elsewhere in Japan. And we have been talking to Estonia for years already, right? For support and the ideas for digital transformation. Our former digital minister visited Estonia repeatedly, and I had a chance to visit Estonia like 10 times, 20 times, I don't know how many times a year. And we had a delegation to Estonia and met EGA representatives and visited lot of locations in Estonia to learn about how Estonia has transformed itself to most advanced digital country. And again, but looking back years, we are not really moving fast enough. And we just want to recall our history, and we have to, make a big change right now because of the COVID-19 and the climatic change and everything. So the time is ticking, and we are now with the digital agency finally. And I'm reading the atmosphere right now. There are a lot of enthusiasm that we have to change right now. So Heiko, from your standpoint, how does Japan look like right now?
I think there is nothing to be embarrassed in Japan because you cannot frog leap it. It's not possible. You have to do it step by step. The thing where you would need to be concerned, I think the most, is not like it sounds bad, but I think it in all the good manners that it's not about comparing Japan to Estonia or some other country, but the more critical thing is to compare the Japanese public sector to the private sector. And it is just that private sector is making much faster steps in order to provide convenient digital services while the public sector lags behind. So in this sense, you need to be following the society in these terms, and you need to cooperate with the private sector so that the look and feel for the citizen of how the services are being provided would be similar. Otherwise, the private sector goes whoosh away, and the governmental sector is something that people think, oh yeah, this is the old paper-based world. No, you don't want that. But maybe just to give you some satisfaction that taking Estonian examples, I would say that Estonia is also, my saying, struggling country with still a lot of legacy and paper-based world, and the COVID situation very strongly exposed where we are lagging behind also. So that is not things that are everything is magic. I have been like facing different kind of public services where I would say that, is that the best we can do? Related to COVID, related to other services. So I think I could build like 2-hour criticism scenario on Estonia and how e-Estonia is actually an F-Estonia. So it's not so good as very often marketing and this kind of promotional things say. So I think take your time in Japan and rather look into Japan internal government, public and private sector cooperation.
Thank you very much. That's encouraging. And one more question to Heiko. So yeah, in Japan, I think private sector much faster than public sectors. Maybe because all of the engineers are employed in the private sector rather than the public sector. So digital transformation is easier in the private sector than the public sector. Of course, the pay is better in the public sector. And what was the history in Estonia? I understand that when the banks joined the digital ID in Estonia, the big promotion of the digital ID amongst the citizens occurred. So collaboration between public and private was a key to penetrate the mind of the citizens for the use of the digital ID. And I'm not sure which one was more advanced than the other in that time. Was that private sector more advanced than the private sector, or kind of equal footing at the time, or the vice versa? What was the situation? And I just want to know the background of transformation.
I think the key here where I would emphasize or put stress on is for banks, it is critical to follow the principle of know your customer. Banks have to be sure who the person is. Now, what defines a person? Bank doesn't define a person. Bank just verifies whatever kind of mechanism they have, but they verify an identity that is government provided. And therefore, banks more than 20 years ago in Estonia discovered that all the crazy paperwork they are doing, they are just trying to keep track that if the government has operated well. So they understood that if banks help the government to build a strong eID system, then the know your customer approach for the banks becomes a lot easier, because the government is maintaining the population and is able to understand who every citizen is. So this is for the banks the kind of saving measure to simplify and make their services better. So banks help the government to establish the eID, and the banks were the first ones to actually benefit from it, because they were able to simplify their authentication, sign up, and know your customer procedures. The tricky part that Estonians don't very often say is that, I don't have now at the moment with me, but the same ID card that was issued first versions in already 2001 to citizens, the banks were almost the only places where you could use them, because banks shared smart card readers to citizens so that they would use these services. Anything else, there was no services available. It was common knowledge to say that during winter time, the best use for the ID card is to scrape ice from the car window, because there are no e-services. And in the summertime, there is no ice, but then you can use it for spreading butter on bread. So it took 5 to 6 years for these governmental authorities to actually be included in this ecosystem and start providing services for the citizens, so that the ID card and mobile ID after that would be of more use. So this is a long process, and I think I've heard and know a little bit about the My Number and My Number card in Japan. It's going fine for you. It's going in a very good pace. Your expectation most likely is just so much higher. So I hope that helps you and gives you a little bit more optimism.
Yeah, I understand. You know, I used to be a banker, so I understand that know your customers is such a costly and sticky concern for the bankers for years, and you know, kind of collaborating between the public sector is a very good solution for both sides actually, and by integrating functions into the digital ID card, you can increase the frequency of usage. Thereby, people are more familiar with the digital ID. Thereby, the more service can be provided from multiple service providers. That's a great idea. Thank you very much. And I got the one question from the viewers. I think this is one of the guys from our side, but let me read it for you. Thank you for presentation, Heiko and Kazunari. I have a question to Heiko. Could you give us some good examples regarding what happened in countries which implemented X-Road? After implementing it, were there any actual changes in public and private sector, such as more willingness for data utilization or digital transformation?
I think there are no good examples, in the sense that, as I said, establishing of these platforms and picking up of those by different authorities, it's a long process. I think one of the most successful countries that is I could give as a comparison to Estonia is Kyrgyzstan in Central Asia. Have you heard about their success of e-governance? I guess not. Why? Because they have gone through all the pain and sweat and tears of building this kind of digital ecosystem. They took 4 chances of setting up X-Road. Every time they did something either organizationally or technically wrong, scrapped everything down, started again, were not persistent on implementing. And I would say 2 years ago, when I saw how many authorities they have connected to Tunduk, how many services they are exchanging there on a daily basis, they already have a significant footprint in the ecosystem. Kyrgyzstan, where I would say that X-Road is well established, is that there is a dependency in governmental level to the platform, that they cannot get rid of it. And I believe that Kyrgyzstan is one of the examples where they cannot get rid of it anymore. There is too many organizations already connecting and sharing data with each other, so that it has a lot of dependency. So the success in this sense cannot be measured in this kind of public announcements and than how people move along the street. Because you know what? The best X-Road implementation is where all the public services hide away because they get moved to automatic. This means that you just one day don't need to go and apply for services. The services are provided to you as you go. And therefore, how do you measure something that is not there anymore? So I think that this question is tricky, but the understanding the impact of X-Road in a society is really, really complicated topic. And you have to be very careful to look and see if there is an impact or not. But definitely the size of the ecosystem and its persistence and dependence on it is something that I would be looking into. I hope that gives a response.
Yeah. And maybe I can ask you one final question and close this session. This is my just personal interest, but I'm curious about the collaboration between Estonia and Finland. I think two countries are using X-Road based data exchange layer for first medical prescription. So when you visit Finland, you can buy medicine without having a call or paper from Estonia, right? So it's all digitally connected, right? So your personal health record can be shared with the across the national borders, which is interesting. And of course, two countries are now focusing on so-called Finest project. It's the intercity digitalization project between Tallinn and Helsinki. So because of the geographical proximity, two countries are moving to a very interesting, synchronized direction. So how could you say something about the kind of, international collaboration? Not very far away, but close to each other, like Estonia and Finland.
Yeah, a couple of comments I think that would be relevant here. As Kudo also showed that the Finnish X-Road was established in 2017 and 15, and I was still in the Estonian government and was negotiating with Finland in order to make this trust federation so that these two ecosystems would be connected and would have this semi-transparent data exchange capability. This contract was signed in 2016, if I remember correctly. The first service to use this capability was launched in 2019. Yeah, 2019. And this is not actually the thing that you would be hearing and understanding, but you have to understand now again the context. Estonian interest on why cooperation with Finland is important is not, again, something that we would like to be on international scene, but it is because a lot of Estonian people go to work and live in Finland, and a lot of Finnish people come to work and live in Estonia, which means a lot of traveling, which means for public administrations, a lot of paperwork. The things that actually matter on this X-Road federation between Estonia and Finland is that those authorities who are dealing with who are residents and who are living where, like population registers and the business register saying that Estonian entrepreneur is now providing services in Finland, have opened up services for each other so that the citizen of Estonia can go to Finland with its Estonian company and start providing services there, and the Finnish tax and business register can automatically fetch necessary data from Estonia, again, invisibly for the citizen and for the entrepreneur. So these are the, I would say, best examples of where the X-Road and its trust federation capabilities work, because these are the things that have been made easier to citizens. So I think in this sense, as I said, the time frame was extremely long. We built the capability, we started technical development of the stuff already 2014, made the trust federation 2016 or 17, and then it took another 3 years to actually do something. For Estonia, because the economies are tight, it is again a matter of survival, because these international relationships are now very costly in terms of administration cost. But the when we started to talk with this to Finland, they say that, well, guys, wait. What do you mean that you want to do cross-border services? We need to cross our ministerial borders nationally. Then we can talk about exchanging data across the border, across the country border. So in this sense, the maturity of these two societies or countries has to be similar, so that there would be the possibility to do cross-border services using these kind of capabilities. So, but it's definitely an interesting topic that we can spend hours to discuss on.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very interesting case, and probably it could be a leading case when it comes to country-country interoperability matters. Right. Thank you for sharing your insights and stories. And we are coming to the good time to conclude this session. So maybe Kudo-san, final word from you and conclude.
Yes. So first of all, Tak and Heiko, thank you very much, and especially, Heiko's delivery of presentation. I learned a lot from you. Not only the background, but deep thoughts behind the X-Road. So thank you very much for your presentation and discussion. And hope to see you soon again with regards to the X-Road implementation somewhere abroad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this concludes our session. And as usual, Kudo-san, maybe final information.
Yes. I'm sorry, but I made a mistake that I shut down my materials, by mistake. I have my X-Road presentation. So I'm sorry, but let me do without the presentation materials. So thank you very much for attending today. And, after this event, you will receive a questionnaire. So we would appreciate if you could answer the questionnaires. And also our future programs and events will be posted on Smart City Institute's Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So please stay tuned and watch for the new programs. And also the past videos will be uploaded on the YouTube channel, and including today's. And the future program is Estonia Week. We have the final one tomorrow, Thursday, and the agenda is I-voting, 電子投票. So we would appreciate if you could come back again and view the webinar tomorrow. We will have more webinars after next week, so please stay tuned. And thanks again for watching, and we hope to see you tomorrow again. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you very much.